The opinions expressed on the following sponsored program are strictly those of the guests and callers and not necessarily those of the station, its staff, management, or sponsors.
Welcome to the Becky and Boca Show. I have a very interesting guest tonight, Karyn Turk. She just spent a month in a maximum security federal prison. So you are now an ex-con. What exactly landed you in prison?
I was the power of attorney for my mother, and I got in a very contentious situation with the nursing home because I felt they weren't caring for her appropriately, and I did refuse to pay them, and legally I should have passed along my mother's funding to them, but I did withhold it. I felt that they weren't doing a good job, and like a lot of people, you feel like you're not getting the services, you don't pay the bill. I'm not the first person to do that, and that was what I felt was appropriate in the moment. And I did that, and I probably shouldn't have, but I did.
It was Social Security fraud that you were charged with, right? Okay. Your mother was in a nursing home. The nursing home was accusing you of cashing your mother's Social Security checks and keeping the money rather than paying them.
Yes and no. I mean, there were no Social Security checks. So that's the first thing. I mean, if you read the headlines, you're going to read in every paper it says Social Security checks. But I don't know about you or me, but everything's direct deposit now. They basically said that I misappropriated the funds. And The reality is the funds technically belong to the nursing home because they were government funds. The reality is the nursing home, in my mind, was not providing the care for my mother that I felt was appropriate. So I was doing things with that money that I probably shouldn't have, but I felt that I needed to take control of the care of my mother and take control of her finances because that's what she would have wanted.
You were talking about an appeal before you went into prison, but then you decided just to serve the 30 days and
no, I didn't have a choice. The reality is I don't think a lot of people understand. You think when somebody files an appeal that means that they don't have to go to prison, but the reality is it's two different things. You could be granted a motion to stay, which means you don't have to serve your sentence, but I wasn't granted a motion to stay, and because my sentence was so short, I had to go in. So regardless of my appeal or no appeal, I had to serve my 30 days.
What did that feel like leading up to the point where you realized you weren't getting out of this and you had to go serve a month in federal prison?
It was crazy because I never would have thought that, it would end up like that. And, again, I do feel that a lot of this was politically biased. I don't want to get into that whole thing on your show. It's not important, but I do feel that I was targeted, that I was treated unfairly. The judge said very clearly on the transcript, and it's public record and anyone can read it, that, normally he doesn't have an opportunity to send a message to America. But because of me and my public platform, this gave him an opportunity to send a message. And that was why my sentence was so harsh. So he had the right to give me the 30 days in prison. That was within the guidelines of what the sentencing requirements were. So he didn't go outside of that. But yeah, it's highly unusual for someone who's never even, I haven't had a speeding ticket in 20 years. I've never been charged with a crime. I've never had a DUI. I have no history of drugs or alcohol. I have nothing. For somebody like me to be sentenced for 30 days in prison over a financial misdemeanor for $17,000 is, unprecedented.
What was it like to be in prison? I mean, you're a tiny little thing. Were you scared? Were you intimidated? Were you in danger when you were in there? The other people in there were in for some serious crimes that you were with?
Could be gang members, could be murderers. You know that there's a lot of people in there for bad stuff. There's also people that are there that are just awaiting trial that, haven't even faced their charges yet. So you've got kind of this weird mixture of different people. And I went in and I found the 4 or 5 people that I was the most afraid of. And I befriended them right away.
How did the other inmates receive you? Were they nice or were they threatening?
They were great. I got there, and the first thing that I did is obviously, we all judge people. We judge people at face value. People were looking at me and judging me. I don't look like a lot of the other people in there. Let's call it what it is. I kind of felt like an alien walking in there. People were looking like, what's she doing here? And, I saw a lot of people that at face value, I was a little afraid of. What was really cool about it is that, once I got there and once I got to know these people, you get to the point where you don't even care anymore about what they're charged with. You see them as human beings, and there was a level of humanity that I saw in there that I think we're lacking outside of prison. We all have something in common, and what I did was I tried to find the one common thread that I had with everyone, and it was different for different people. There were people that, the thing I had in common, that we were parents. We had an elderly parent that we were a caregiver for, and they related to, my story and my nursing home story and how they were neglecting my mother, or they related to the fact that I have 4 kids, or that I've been married 3 times. And I just tried to find something in common with every single person that I met. I mean, that's all you can do. And it was cool to kind of put aside, the day-to-day, getting wrapped up in Facebook and politics.
Did you have any access to social media while you were in there?
No, not really. There are cell phones in there. There are girls that have cell phones. You're not supposed to. It's contraband. It's illegal. I kept away from everything illegal because I was only there for 30 days. But did I witness people with cell phones? Yeah. Is it kind of known that goes on? Sure. But no, I had no access to social media. All I had was like the internal email that I emailed, my kids and my lawyer, and phone calls to my husband. And towards the end of my stay, we were on a full lockdown because of COVID. So we were actually locked in our cells the last, a little over a week. We were in our cells 20 hours a day.
Did you have a roommate or a cellmate?
I did. No, I had 2 different roommates. When I first got there, I had a roommate who, it was so confusing when you came in there. I was kind of like in a fog. They left me in a holding cell for 5 hours. I was, kind of like really like scared and still wrapped up in everything that was happening. And they brought me in and they didn't have a room for me. And they couldn't figure out where to put me. And basically they just threw me in the room with this woman who said I could come into her room. And she was detoxing from heroin. Like, it was total chaos. And she had only been there for probably about 36 hours when I got there. And she was in really bad shape. Really nice person, but pretty much straight up told me that there had never been a day that had gone by that she hadn't done drugs in her entire life, and that she didn't know what the next couple of days were going to hold for her, and she ended up being really physically ill. There's everything that you think sounds so bad that it would only happen on TV. It's actually real. It happens every day in downtown Miami. It's hard for me to explain to you because you've never experienced being in federal prison, and I certainly hope you never have to. But
so let me ask you. So they bring you in, you go in your cell. What are you wearing? They give you. Is it orange?
It wasn't. It was forest green. When I first came in, they give you like a green jumper, which is the same for men or women, except the women's, they cut the bottoms off of them so they're short enough that they don't drag on the floor. They give you a pair of brown knee-high socks, brown underwear, a brown sports bra, and this kind of coverall, this green coverall, which was what I was wearing initially when I came in, and threw me in this room with this person who was detoxing. And although what I appreciated about her is she was straight up. She told me, like, this is what's wrong. Like, this is going to be hell for me. I'm sorry to expose you to this, but, don't call for help. Don't get yourself in trouble because of me. This is my fault. I put myself here. And I appreciated her honesty. And I also really felt like she really wanted help. But, there wasn't any help in the facility. There's no rehabilitation there. They don't do anything to rehab people. This is just strictly, you're there, you're in detention, you're in a cell.
Serving your time.
You're serving your time. And then after about 3 or 4 days, it really was very difficult being in a room with her because she was so physically ill. And, I could tell she almost didn't want me there as well. It was just she wanted to be alone. And I ended up switching rooms. And my second roommate was a really interesting person. And she was there serving a lot of time and had done some really, really, really bad things.
Can you say what type of things?
She was there for manslaughter.
Oh my goodness.
And she was serving 8 years, and, she was somebody who had a lot of anger issues in her life, and, had, over the years learned to be a better person and deal with them. And she's getting out later this summer, and I wish her luck. I hope that, this is a change for the better with her.
You shared a room with someone that's in there for murder.
Yep.
And it's just 2 people per cell. And is it bunk beds like you see in the movies?
I had the top bunk.
There's a toilet in the cell. Is that the way that works?
Oh yeah, no, there's a toilet in the cell, and
There's no privacy whatsoever.
no, and there's mostly male guards, Becky. You know, you would think that there would be female guards, but it's mostly male guards. And yeah, the male guards walk right by, and you're not allowed to cover up the window that's on your cell door. And if you're using the bathroom, you're using the bathroom. And if you're taking a shower, you're taking a shower. And there's absolutely no privacy.
Is there a shower in the cell?
The shower is in the hallway, kind of out in the open for everybody to see.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
And do you shower on a schedule, or can you just say, I'd like to take a shower now?
There were different, depending on different guards and different times, there were different rules, and the rules were kind of constantly changing. So I looked to my roommate who had a lot of experience being in prison, and I basically would ask her, you know, what I could do and what I couldn't do. And I pretty much tried to keep myself out of trouble that way. But there was some flexibility. I always tried to shower in the afternoon because I knew that the guard in the afternoon was one of the male guards who wouldn't, you know, look in the shower when I was in there and didn't peek in the door when you were in the bathroom. So yeah, you kind of learn to do everything on a schedule around what guard is there, and you know, basically because I didn't want to be harassed, I just wanted to fly under the radar.
You just wanted to do your time and get out of there. And it was only 30 days, so.
That was the thing too, is the beautiful thing about it is there was always a light at the end of the tunnel for me.
Mm-hmm. Okay, mealtime. They serve you meal in your cell, or do you go to a commissary, or what?
Well, commissary is like a convenience store, and we'll get to that. But when you have meal, it's called chow. And your mealtime is actually in the center of this unit. So where I was actual cells, jail cells, and there were 2 levels. And then in the middle of the 2 levels, there was like a platform. And on that platform, there were tables, and that's where we would eat our meals. So they would call the upper tier, which was the top rooms, or the bottom tier. And when they call your name, it's just like a drill sergeant calling your name, like chow time, top tier. And you're expected to be down the stairs waiting, grab your food, sit down, and you have exactly 8 minutes to eat your food.
8 minutes?
8 minutes.
No leisurely dinners there, huh?
Nope.
What's an example of a dinner, a regular dinner?
Slop. I mean, you know, yeah, it was slop. I mean, like I want to use the S word, the curse word, the SH, you know, word, but I don't want to use it because I know that I can't use it on television.
Video, yeah.
But that on a shingle would be the best way to describe it. It's just slop. And I was on the kosher meals, thankfully, after the rabbi came, so that was a little bit better. But the men there were protesting all the expired food, so they were defecating on the trays in protest.
Wait, so it's a men and women's prison?
Oh, yeah, there were 1,100
I didn't know it was co-ed.
Yeah, well, not in my unit. My unit was all women, so there are only about 100 women at any given time. When I was there were 70 to 100 women, and there's about 1,100 men in the same facility.
In the same prison. And where is this located? It's in Miami, right?
Downtown Miami.
Downtown Miami. 3 meals a day, I guess?
3 meals a day, no outdoor area, everything's indoors.
You didn't go outside at all?
No, you're not allowed outside at all. It's completely
30 days with no sunshine?
No sunshine whatsoever. It's completely indoors. There was a woman there that was there for 10 years, Becky, that hadn't seen daylight in 10 years.
Oh, that's shocking to me.
There were a lot of things that were shocking. There were a lot of things that were shocking. That'll all be in the second book. The second book is really my story of prison and what happened while I was there.
Yes.
Yeah, no daylight for 10 years. There were people there that, again, haven't even been, they've been charged, but they haven't actually been to trial yet. Sometimes they're there for 6 months, and sometimes they're there for a year or more.
Wow.
They actually go to trial, and they're in this full lockdown facility, and they don't get to see daylight, and 3 meals a day, and locked in your cell. And
so, how did you pass the time?
I got to know as many women as I could, and there were, I would say, probably about half the women really wanted to tell me their stories. So I made a point of learning as many stories as I could and getting to know as many women as I could. So I spent a lot of time just talking to people and writing down their stories. And then the rest of the time, there were movies. You could watch movies. I was lucky enough that I had someone who had control of the TVs, and she had Fox News on for me most of the time. I got to watch Fox News as much as I wanted. So that was great. And, you make it work. It kind of becomes somewhat routine. But, it was a lot of people that I think were in there unfairly. a lot of people that were in there that did really bad things, and then a handful of white collar people like me, but I was definitely not the norm in there.
Yeah, I wouldn't think so. Just give me an average day. Do they wake you up at a certain time? Make you get up and...
Yeah, at 6 o'clock in the morning, you're awoken, usually by screaming. The guards are, they're worse than drill sergeants. I mean, it's downright verbal abuse. So you're awoken with screaming at 6 o'clock in the morning. And at that point, you have to get up and you immediately have to make your bed and you have to be dressed immediately. Breakfast is served at 6:30. You have 8 minutes to eat. You eat your food. You go back to your room. It's time for count. They walk around, they count everybody in their cells, make sure that nobody's escaped, which in downtown Miami, 5 stories up, I don't know where you would go, but they check anyway. And then the day begins, and a lot of the girls get to go to work. They work either in the kitchen or in the laundry.
Oh, you have a job in there?
I was not allowed to have a job. I was one of the only inmates that was not permitted to work, which was very strange. But basically, they told me straight up that, Miss Turk, you're going to get plenty of stories being on the unit, and we know that the reason that you want a job is so you'll have more stories to tell, and we're not going to give you the opportunity to do that. Because there were a lot of things that went on in the kitchen and the laundry that I heard from the other girls. I mean, I watched Orange is the New Black only after I came back. And that show is so realistic. When I watched it, I immediately said to myself, this must be based on a true story. This has to be based on a true story. And sure enough, it is. Piper was actually in a federal camp and was in prison for a little over a year. So that show is very realistic, and it seems crazy. I mean, it might go a little far when they're cutting up guards and, burying them and that kind of stuff. But as far as that might be a little far. But the dynamic between the women and the racial structure that goes on there, the fact that there are these cliques, there's the blacks, there's the Latinos, there's, kind of the oddball, white people like me, that was actually very realistic. It was very cliquey. It was very segmented, a lot by race. Everybody was very nice. I had no issue with anybody, but the races almost fight amongst each other, which I was kind of fortunate to be a minority in there, I think, because you're subject to a lot less controversy. There's a lot less infighting when you're a minority.
Interesting. Wow. Okay, so they wake you up at 6. The people, you get your 8-minute breakfast.
Yep, 8-minute
breakfast. People
breakfast.
that are going to work go to work, but you would just stay in your cell?
I would stay in myself.
You can exercise anywhere?
There was a gym there, which was a very small little gym with a little slit of a window, and there were some extra size bikes in there, and I eventually found some yoga DVDs, but I would normally sit out in the rec area, which was sort of indoors, but had this big, metal grate, so there was some fresh air that came in, and I would go out there and I would do yoga, or I would play what I called prison ball, which consisted of taking racket balls and hitting them to one of my prison friends with a tennis racket. So we'd invent things to do.
Is there air conditioning in the prison?
Oh yeah. They keep it on. They keep it about 45 to 50 degrees at any given time.
It's freezing in there?
Freezing cold. Wow. It's horrifically cold.
Really?
Yep.
Oh. Do you have blankets on your bed? Anything like that?
Given one blanket, a very thin cotton blanket. And when I first got there, they only give you a short sleeve shirt, so you're chilled to the bone. I mean, I was freezing. And you are able to buy sweats on the commissary, which of course is the one thing that I desperately wanted. But commissary only comes every 2 weeks, so depending on when you get there, you might be cold for a very long time.
Wow.
My roommate, my first roommate, the one that, was the recovering from heroin, she fortunately had saved a sweatshirt from the girl who had OD'd in the room before I got there and had been sent to the psych ward. So I was able to borrow that sweatshirt until I got my own. So it was a lucky break for me.
Wow. Yeah. Okay, and then lights out at a certain time?
Yeah, and at 10 o'clock, they put you in, they lock you in. I think, actually, I'm sorry, at 9:30, they lock you in. And then around 10 o'clock, they walk around and they do, again, what they call count, where they count everybody in their cells locked in and make sure everybody's there. And then at 10:30, they start screaming at you again. When we were all locked in our cell, which it seemed like there was no reason to verbally abuse us as we were locked in, but there just seemed to be a lot of people that take the job as guards in these federal prisons because they have anger issues. And again, I realize it's jail and I realize I'm in a federal prison. I get all of it. But, it seemed like there was no reason for that. And we had a 75-year-old woman who was in there, and I saw guards, verbally abuse her and treat her really, really badly. And it was really hard to watch.
Wow.
Yeah.
Difficult.
But you find things to do. We talked on the toilet. I mean, we would talk on the toilet to the
I heard something about that. So how did you talk on the toilet? You want to explain that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you need somebody with a really big booty. So fortunately, I knew some girls, and they basically will create suction with their buttocks on the toilet and suck all the water out of the toilet by kind of jumping up and down like a plunger. And once they get all of the water out of the toilet, you basically make a tube. We made ours out of a soda container. We made a tube, took the cardboard, made a tube. You shove it down the hole in the toilet, and you go, yo, yo, yo. And the guy upstairs, clear as day, comes on like it's a speakerphone and says, hey, what's up? And you talk to the guys upstairs. No
so
joke.
It's going into another cell.
Yeah, and the guy upstairs from us would clean out his line at 3 o'clock so we could have our speaker call with him.
And I suppose nobody can use the toilet during this time where the whole call is...
The whole call is disconnected if you flush. The whole call is disconnected if you flush.
So then
all over.
Got her back in there afterwards.
You just flush the toilet.
Oh. Oh my goodness, the things they come up with.
The things they come up with, I have to tell you that these women were some of the most just industrious, amazing, like talk about hacks, talk about like prison hacks. These women can make anything in a microwave, from cakes to cupcakes to baked goods to cookies. Things that I would have never imagined, using items off the commissary. They also, you use maxi pads for everything, from cleaning your floor to wiping down your counters to, I could make shower shoes. I did make them out of maxi pads.
You made shower shoes out of maxi pads?
I did. I did. Yeah. I mean, you got to do what you got to do. But I actually was really impressed. I mean, there were a lot of things that I learned when I was in there. A lot of these little, you don't realize, like, all these things that you throw away are so valuable. Toilet paper rolls become towel hangers. You take 2 toilet paper cardboard things, you string a piece of yarn through it, and it becomes a hanger, and you can drape your towel over it.
Unbelievable. So would you get like one towel? Is it that kind of thing?
Yeah, until you can order them off the commissary. So I did order extra towels.
Do they do your laundry for you in there?
They do your laundry for you once a week. You give them your laundry bag, and the girls work in the laundry, so you get your laundry done. And if
you only have one change of clothes?
No, they give you 3 changes of clothes. Okay. So you have 3 changes of clothes, 3 pairs of pants, 3 shirts, because once they take you out of the green, at that point I was designated to that prison, so then they give you your beige outfit, just on Orange is the New Black, and you get your top and your bottom, and they give you 3 of those, and they give you 3 pairs of underwear, and I immediately started hand washing my underwear because you realize
3 pair of underwear for a week.
Not only that, you realize they're not brand new underwear, so you would.
No.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, it's a lot to take in, Becky. It's a lot. It's a lot.
Ooh.
So, yeah, you learn to wash things in the sink and make it work. And they do laundry. And if you have a friend in the laundry, which I was lucky enough after 2 weeks to have a friend in the laundry, then you get all your stuff back. But if you don't have a friend, your towels and things might end up missing.
They disappear. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, yeah. But I ordered extra towels, and I feel bad. There's a lot of women that are in there that don't have anybody on the outside, and they don't have any money, and they don't have anything except what the prison gets them, and they get one brown hand towel, and that's all they got. They have to rely on their roommate getting released and gifting them things. And when I left,
away when you left?
Of course, absolutely. I gave everything away, and I was lucky. I mean, I come from a pretty blessed life. I was lucky. I had lots of extra towels and things that I could give people, and I felt good, walking out of there, being able to know that I made somebody's day a little bit better by giving them a sweatshirt. But you don't realize, how little you really need to survive. We all live in this world of excess, including me, and
Right.
there's a lot of stuff you really don't need. And I'm not a minimalist even now. I mean, I was very happy to come home and, have my Tempur-Pedic mattress and, my big closet of clothes. But, you realize you don't really need that thing.
Yeah.
You don't need it.
Wow. Wow. So then when you do get out and you have to go on house arrest, everybody else is already locked down at home.
I have a snazzy ankle bracelet. Nobody else got one.
Oh, yes, yes. Green. How long do you have to wear that?
I'm on house arrest for 5 months, which means I have to, have my schedule. I mean, I'm allowed to go to work, but, when I'm not at work, I need to be home, which is pretty much my life anyway.
You're allowed to leave to go to work.
Yeah, they can't stop me from working. My crime has nothing to do with my work.
Okay, so that's not horrible.
I don't care. And you know what? I would do it again. I would serve 30 days again if I knew that I was going to have the opportunity to be able to fight back for others. And I feel that God gave me this opportunity for a reason. And I feel like as horrible as it was and as much of a struggle that I've had personally, I now have a really unique opportunity to talk to other people that may potentially be making mistakes as a caregiver for their elderly parent, may be placing them in some of these facilities that are just absolutely horrific, may find themselves facing a guardianship, which is what happened to me. And if I could go back, I would do it differently. But I feel like, as bad as it was, it could have happened to anybody else. And I want to warn people.
Wow. So now your mother, she's deceased, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. But my mom ended up dying, and I tried to fight back. But at that point, I had no rights. My rights had been stripped from me. She died after they appointed the guardian. She just deteriorated. Things got worse and worse. And as much as I begged and pleaded, the guardian really at that point, did very little to help her, in my opinion. And my mother ended up dying with bed sores all over her body. Again, I don't even want to discuss it on your show because it sounds so depressing. And I know people don't want to hear this part of the story, which stinks, because this is the part that people should hear, because you wouldn't want this to be your mother or your family member.
You wrote a book about all of your experiences. And what's the name of your book?
The name of my book is the same name as my TV show. It's Behind the Headlines, which I feel like was really prophetic that we named my television show that. And originally my TV show was named because I was interviewing a lot of celebrities and people who had headlines. And funny enough, here I am with my own headlines. And
you became quite the headline. Wow. Well, okay. I'm glad you're out.
Me too.
And I'm not going back, right?
No, I'm not going back. Definitely not. I don't want to make any repeat visits there.
Okay, well, thank you, Karyn Turk. This was a very interesting interview. Thank you for being so honest. And
I love coming on your show, Becky. The best show ever.
I've had you on a few times. Always very entertaining. And I kept saying I got to get her when she gets out. So I think it was a great interview. Thank you for sharing. And everybody out there, thanks for watching the Becky and Boca Show, and we'll see everybody next week. Bye-bye.
The opinions expressed on the preceding program are strictly those of its guest and not those of the host or of the show.